This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. We'll start the show today looking back for a moment at last weekend's snowcross in Bangor. First over Skidoo, then two more Arctic cats coming through, a Polaris and another Skidoo. Then we'll go over to Moosehead for some togue fishing. We'll head down east for Winter Fun Day, and I'll end the show by trying to keep my wallet in my pants. Do you guys do anything besides eat?
Why would you? Why would you? So there are occasions when we snowmobile. There you are.
Welcome to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. On today's show, we're going to look forward 3 times and back once. Next weekend, the 8th annual Togue Ice Fishing Derby happens at Moosehead Lake, sponsored jointly by the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife and the Natural Resources Education Center in Greenville. This has become one of the biggest ice fishing events in Maine, and just wait until you hear about the prizes and the wild game dinner. Also next weekend, Cobscook Bay State Park hosts a Winter Family Fun Day. We'll check in with the park superintendent to see what's on the schedule. Next Saturday night, the Pine Tree Snowmobile Club of Milford hosts its annual chili and chowder auction. There's a good chance this is going to cost me some money. That's all coming up. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysarts, EBS, and Napa Auto Parts. We start today's show by looking back to last weekend. I spent some time at the Paul Bunyan International Snowcross Championships in Bangor. Wow. I'm trackside at Bass Park in Bangor. It's only about 10 degrees, but the wind isn't too bad and the sun is shining. The date is January 10th. This is the Paul Bunyan International Snowcross. The stands are full of spectators. The far side of the horse track has been converted into a pit area. Scores of trucks and trailers supporting over 100 racing sleds over there. The sleds race in many classifications, even a class for kids. The 8 to 10-year-olds will take the track a little while. Right now, the pro class is on the track. These are big modified sleds. They're faster, they're louder. It's like listening to a chainsaw as they tear around the track. They jump the bumps 40 to 50 feet in the air and more. Pros travel from all over to get to this event. We've got local riders, and we've got some riders from Quebec and beyond. Some of them are on the track right now, as this is the second of 2 heats in this class. The winners of the 2 heats will race to the championship later this afternoon. Now, if you've never seen snowcross before, it's like motocross on bikes or dune buggies or whatever. It's a small oval track with big bumps and banked corners. Speed isn't as important as accelerating the bumps smoothly and handling those bumps and staying out of trouble in the corners. The sleds run close, sometimes hitting the jump simultaneously. The biggest bump is the finish line. It's a massive jump, and the sleds leap dozens of feet right in front of the grandstand. There's a dip where they land, and then it's another small jump just before a tight banked corner. The 3 small bumps beyond that lead into another very tight corner. And then the sleds need to accelerate quickly into a set of 4 bumps. The fastest sleds and best riders try to clear 3 of those bumps in one jump. The lower classes can't get that much air, but they'll try to take them 2 at a time. Taking the bumps is the key to winning snowcross. The trick is to keep the sled relatively flat in the air and hit the downslope of the landing area. If you're tilted too far back or forward, you can come down with a thump and lose momentum. If you fly too far, you hit the upslope to the next bump and lose time. Losing time in the bumps means losing time in the corners. Most of the passing takes place in the corners or in the relatively flat section on the far left side of the track where the starting line is. Getting off to a fast start is critical. Whoever gets out in front often stays in front. At the starting line, about 7 sleds go off at once and race around the first turn to get to the big jump in front of the crowd. In the last few heats I've been watching, twice there have been collisions right there at the start as the racers juggle for position. Anyone unlucky enough to start on the outside sometimes find themselves crowded to the edge in the turn. In fact, just a little while ago we had another sled who toppled over just as they got to the jump. The crews are fast. If sleds topple over and get tangled up, the yellow flag comes out and they work quickly to get those sleds upright before the field comes around to the second lap. All of these races are, of course, lap events. The higher the classification, it's more likely the laps they do. It's really tight. The entire snowcross track fits inside the horse racing track at Bass Park. Passing is difficult. The leader gets the best line into the turns. In order to pass, followers may attempt a tighter turn inside in the corners, but this usually loses momentum as the rear skids out a bit, and it's hard to accelerate fast enough to make the jumps that follow that turn. Best chance to pass is on the far end, where the jumps are shorter and the straightaways relatively smooth. But you got to make the corner correctly in order to set up for that big jump right there at the finish line. The big jump in front of the crowd demonstrates how you have to handle the jumps. As they hit the hill, riders let off the gas at the last second and try to float low through the jump, getting back on the ground as quickly as possible to accelerate into the turn. On the backside, the pro riders hit the first jump as fast as possible, trying to clear several bumps at once. This heat's coming into a conclusion. First over Skidoo, then two more Arctic Cats coming through, a Polaris and another Skidoo. The leaders of this race will go on to race again later on this afternoon. That was just a tiny piece of the action at the Paul Bunyan International Snowcross in Bangor last weekend. If you missed it or you want more of it, circle the third weekend of February, because the Lincoln Snowhounds will stage their annual snowcross races over that weekend in about a month from now. Coming up, we're headed to Moosehead Lake to prepare for the 8th annual Togue Fishing Derby. Big prizes, lots of ice fishing. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Next weekend is the 8th annual Togue Derby on Moosehead Lake. Some events just get bigger and better with age. Ricky Craven will be on hand making the rounds, chatting up the participants out there on the ice next weekend. Tim Obrey is at the top of the list of local volunteers who now put on one of the biggest and best ice fishing events in Maine. Well, Tim, this is your second time on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. I hope it's as good as the first.
Okay.
You wear two hats. You're the IF&W fisheries biologist in the Moosehead area, and you're president of the Natural Resource Education Center in Moosehead Lake, which we call NREC. Which hat are you wearing right now when you talk to me?
Well, I'm hoping I can wear both. There's a little bit of a story from both angles, really.
Okay. Well, good. Where do both entities fit into this picture?
Well, from the biological perspective, we came up with the idea of this Togue Derby on Moosehead back in 2008 as a strategy to reduce the number of togue in the lake, because at the time we had a population of togue that was heavily skewed towards small stunted fish, and they basically had eaten themselves out of house and home. So we were looking for methods to control that population, to reduce it, and one of the strategies was to increase fishing use, because in the wintertime our use had actually dropped quite a bit. So we really wanted to bring more people to the area to catch and remove some of these togue, and we also put on some very liberal regulations at the time, back in 2008. So those two things in combination, we hoped would help us thin the togue down and bring back the smelt population, which is the main forage. It's always difficult to keep a population of anything in balance with both nature and with our own activities. So you've got quite a challenge in your hands. Yeah, I'm not so sure there is any such thing as balance. We just try to level out the highs and lows. Right. They're certainly unbalanced, though. You can have too much of a good thing. That's true. I look at the deer population in the Mid-Atlantic states, and they've eaten the understory so much, nothing grows there anymore. Right. Yeah. So how did Ricky Craven get wrapped into this? Well, there used to be a snowmobile ride every winter. Yeah. It was sort of a charity event in Greenville, and they had a couple of years where they just had really poor conditions, and it was a hard thing to organize. I think people were kind of getting tired, so that charity event went away. But Ricky is still really involved with the community up there, and we thought it would be a good idea to bring him in on this new sort of charitable project, and he was all in favor of it. And so he comes up every week, every derby, and he'll be out riding around on the lake talking to ice fishermen. He comes over to the way station, and he just hangs out and talks with people.
And is he going to be around all weekend, or do you know exactly what his schedule is going to be, or does it really matter?
I don't really know what his schedule is going to be. I just know in the past he usually takes off on Saturday and does some snowmobiling, and we're hoping on this Derby, coming on Saturday night of this Derby, we're having a big wild game dinner at the American Legion in Greenville, so we're hoping he'll come over to that event too.
Okay. Well, yeah, I want to get to that in a moment because that sounds great. Let me go over the basics first. What are the hours of the event? What are the costs? What are the opportunities here?
Okay, so the Derby runs from the 23rd to the 25th, which is Friday through Sunday, and it costs $25 for an individual ticket or $40 for the family ticket.
And the family could be unlimited. If you get a lot of kids, they all get to fish?
It's the family is it's designed for you and your spouse and your children.
Okay. Yeah. When I looked at your flyer, the prizes seem to be bigger and better. You have door prizes, so you don't even have to actually fish to enter. But the prizes look enormous this year. Yes,
we really cranked it up this year.
I guess you did. How did you do that?
Well, we went out and got some sponsors this year. We were lucky. Organizations like Bangor Savings, Ronnie Agency, the Maine Highlands Federal Credit Union, all ponied up some money. Indian Hill Trading Post has been a big sponsor for the whole entire length of the Derby.
Yeah.
And so we got a little bit of cash, and NREC has invested a little bit of its own money to get these prizes. In the past, we've had things like an ice fishing package. So we might have a vacation in the Greenville area or a sporting camp or something, but now we're really cranking it up, the Derby has kind of taken a little bit of a change. As I mentioned earlier, when it first was created, it was designed to thin down the togue. It was a fisheries management strategy, but we've really reached our goal now. The catch rates for those small togue have dropped way down, so we're really where we want to be in terms of fisheries management. So the Derby is not so much of focus on taking fish out as it's turning into more of a community event and a fundraiser for the charities in Greenville. So we opted to try to boost these door prizes, get some really good door prizes to bring other people in that maybe they don't want to fish, but maybe they'd like to take a trip south. I couldn't imagine why anybody would want to go south this time of year. Do you?
No, I can't imagine.
So we worked out a deal with the folks at Bigelow Travel here in Dover. So the first door prize, whoever wins will have a choice between basically four options. The first option would be a trip to Universal Studios in Orlando for two, or a Carnival cruise to the Bahamas for two, or a trip to Vegas, or they can just take $1,500 in cash.
Jeez.
Yeah,
I mean, that is just way over the top compared to what used to be offered.
Yeah, we're hoping to build it and bring more people in, and this is a good way to do it. We also know that from the past, when past derbies, we would sell between 200 and 300 tickets, but there would be probably 500 to 700 people out on the lake.
Yeah.
So I think there were probably a lot of people basically party fishing. The prizes weren't all that attractive, so that somebody would buy a ticket in the party, and if they caught a big fish, that's what probably was going to happen.
Well, the important point to point out is that this is just first prize. You've got some pretty good second and third, and these are just door prizes.
That's right.
There are cash prizes for the fish winners, so let's go over the whole schedule.
Okay, so the second door prize would be a brand new rifle, a Savage Model 10 30-06 with a scope. The third prize is a Remington Model 870 shotgun. Then the fourth prize is an ice fishing package, which will include an auger and a jet sled and some more fishing gear. And then fifth prize is just $250 of cold hard cash, which anybody would probably take. And then we'll probably have a bunch of smaller prizes like we have in the past. And as you said, Bob, these are all door prizes. So a person from the Bangor area, or actually from anywhere in the, could just buy a ticket, an entry ticket, and have a chance to win these prizes.
Yeah, and there are cash prizes for the actual fish winners too.
That's right. $1,500 for the heaviest fish, then $500, and then $250.
So that's a very impressive cash schedule. This ought to build the event somewhat. And I think what thrills me the most is that yes, it is a community event, but it's also a celebration of a very good resource in the area. The togue population, as you say, is right sized now. There's some good ones in there, and it makes for a pretty good event.
It does. It's a great event, and the money the proceeds from all the derbies in the past have gone into other fisheries projects in the area. We've used some of the proceeds from the past derbies to do things like hire college kids in the summer to do internships on programs to improve trout fishing. We've purchased radio telemetry tags for the restoration of Arctic char at Big Wadley Pond. We bought some equipment for solar panels for our remote tagging studies that we've done on moosehead. So the money, it's a great community project. It's helped us in terms of fisheries management right on Moosehead Lake, but the money also has been reinvested into improving the fisheries of that region.
My memory is not as good as it once was. I don't remember you doing a wild game dinner last year. Is this new?
This is new.
Okay.
Yep, and it's in. We're partnering up with the American Legion. Mm-hmm. So on Saturday night from 4 to 7, we're going to have a wild game dinner. We're going to have moose and there's deer. There's some goose. We may have some bear, and we'll have all kinds of different dishes, and it's by donation. And after the dinner's over, we're going to draw the prizes, the door prizes.
Yeah.
And we hope to have a good turnout. And the proceeds from that will be split between the American Legion for their scholarship funds, and for the NREX has a youth education program in the summertime where we take kids hiking and kayaking and canoeing and fishing, and so the proceeds will go to fund that project.
Yeah, whenever someone talks about doing a wild game dinner, I suggest that they thin out the turkey population as much as possible.
Yeah.
It always surprises me when I find them around Moosehead Lake.
Yeah, there are a few up that way.
There really are.
Yeah.
Well, the original inspiration for this was because something was going wrong with the moosehead fishery. How do you actually measure the progress now towards reaching the goals you're after?
Well, we spend a lot of time on moosehead, especially in the wintertime. There are 3 of us full-time in the office, and we usually hire 1 or 2 students to go out and check fishermen on the lake. And so we have basically catch rate data and age and growth data really since the 60s, almost every winter since the 60s that we can compare to. Mm-hmm. So we have some really good baseline data to track things like catch rates, how the fish are growing, the amount of food in the lake, and so we know when things are going wrong. Sometimes it's a challenge to correct those things, but we have a real good handle on what's going on.
My guest is Tim Obrey. We're talking about the 8th annual Togue Fishing Contest on Moosehead Lake next weekend. Tim is the state's fisheries biologist in the Moosehead area, and he's the president of NREC, the Natural Resources Education Center in Greenville. I'll be talking more about NREC in a few minutes, but I've got a nagging question about this Togue Fishing Contest. What happens if you catch something else? That's next as Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine continues on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8. On today's show, a winter fun day down east, a chili and chowder auction next weekend, and the Togue Ice Fishing Derby. The Derby is what I've got Tim Obrey on the line for. The 8th annual Togue Ice Fishing Derby is next weekend at Moosehead Lake, and I'm wondering, Tim, what happens if you catch something else, like a landlocked salmon?
Well, Moosehead is closed to the taking of salmon until February 15th.
Okay, so got to put it back.
You got to put it back. That was one of the guidelines when we set the Derby up, is that we wanted to have it before the salmon season opened on Moosehead because we wanted to protect those fish.
Yeah. Does catching anything else bring any kind of reward, or is it just Togue?
Just Togue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what fish are in Moosehead now that weren't there 100 years ago?
Oh, well, most notably would be smallmouth bass and white perch.
Yeah.
We don't typically see many of those, though, in the wintertime. Those species are there, but they're really not super abundant.
Yeah. Are there any fish like Arctic char that were there 100 years ago but aren't now?
Nope, we've never had Arctic char there, and I don't believe, well, except for probably lake whitefish have been extirpated from Moosehead.
Alewives ever make it up that far?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
Well, this is a big watershed with an immensely important fishery, so there's lots of rivers, streams, ponds. Where on earth do you find all the time, Tim?
Well, there's never a dull moment.
I bet. I mean, what is the geographic area that you have to cover just to take care of this important watershed fishery?
Well, my whole region actually covers the Kennebec and the Penobscot drainage, so or parts of those drainages. So from Dover Foxcroft south to Allagash Lake to the north, and then from Jackman, west of Jackman, I don't know if anybody knows where Holub is, Holub Skinner area,
yep.
And then over towards Rainbow Lake to the east. So we've got about 250,000 acres of water.
I don't know where you find the time. I really don't.
Well, it's fun. That's one thing. There's always something to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about NREC, because it's almost 20 years old, and it's one of those projects that seems to have grown on people somewhat by surprise. For years, it seems I would see the sign saying, here's where NREC is going to be. Then it had
right.
temporary offices in a couple of different places. It has been a slow and steady project to get NREC up to the state that it is now.
It has been a slow process, and we've had to learn, what it is we can do effectively and focus on that. There were some very big plans when NREC was first formed to have a huge visitor center with full-time staff, and we just could not fund it in the long term. We just realized, you can only get so many grants, and the town up there, I like to say we live at the end of the road in Greenville, and we really do, so it's hard to, fund something like that.
Yeah.
So we did get some smaller grants, and we did finally build a visitor center right at the old DOT rest area coming into town. And we've leased that space out to the Chamber of Commerce, and the Forest Society of Maine has an office there. Mm-hmm. And we've actually got a number of projects in the works. We're going to, in fact, I was just working on one today where we are going to restore the first manned fire tower in the United States, which was up on Big Moose Mountain. The Forest Service brought down the original steel, which was from the early 1900s. They brought that down a couple of years ago. And so the folks at Charleston Correctional Facility are actually restoring the steel, and they're going to rebuild the cab, and we're going to attach that to our visitor center next spring.
And that is the oldest fire tower in the country?
It's the oldest full-time manned fire tower. There were some earlier ones that people would go up and just check and then come back down, but I think this one was from 1906 or maybe 1909. The original steel. So it's been quite a project. You can imagine taking a helicopter to the top of the Moose Mountain and then flying over Greenville with a big piece of steel and landing it in our visitor center parking area there, and then we hauled it just a little while ago. We hauled it down to Charleston for them to refurbish.
Well, I remember what shape it was in when I went up to visit it at the top of Big Moose Mountain a couple of times, and just getting it off in one piece and down safely, I think, was probably a challenge.
Right. And the original cab was, well, actually, I think the cab, there were 3 different cabs, I think, on top of that over its entire history, and the last one was rebuilt in the early 60s or late 50s, and it was pretty well gone. It was all gone, really.
Yeah. And
so they just tore that down, and we have the original blueprints, so we're going to build it.
Yeah, in more recent years, fire towers, you always have to put signs saying don't climb on it, but nobody ever had the urge to climb on that one.
Right. Well, the good part about this one is it will be attached to our building. We're going to build a wraparound deck on our visitor center, and there'll be a set of steps that go up into the cab. So you won't be able to go up the ladder. The insurance company didn't like the idea of having a fire tower with a ladder.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to walk right up into it, and we're going to cut a few of the trees to the north and east of the visitor center, so you'll have just a beautiful view of the mountains out towards Elephant Mountain, Number 4 Mountain, out towards the B-52 crash site. You'll be able to look all the way out through there from our fire tower.
Okay. So what specifically is the mission for NREC, or what has it evolved into these days?
Well, our mission is still the same. We still want to be the source for people coming to the area to learn about the natural history of the Moosehead Lake region. So we have a number of different ways to sort of achieve that goal, and we have what we call our Maine Woods Explorer program, which is our K through 12 summer program that runs for 6 or 7 weeks during school vacation. We take the kids out 3 or 4 days a week, and just take them outside. A lot of hiking, a lot of canoeing and kayaking. We do some fishing. We do some science. We do rockets for a day. And then in during February vacation, we take them out in the woods for a dog sledding trip, which is pretty fun. They all love that. And we have adult education programs from time to time. Things based on the outdoors again, like we've done bird watches, and we've done stuff about learning about making maple syrup and all kinds of different projects like that. And NREC also organizes the Thoreau Wabanaki Trail Festival every summer, which is basically a celebration of Henry David Thoreau's trip through Maine. Mm-hmm. And so there are seminars with that, and this past summer we also had an evening cruise on the steamship Katahdin with a photographer, Scott Miller, who wrote had a photo book on Thoreau's Trail here in Maine.
So would you say the focus is more these days on the local population, on kids, or on visitors, or whatever you can grab on a given day?
It's really all of them. For example, our kids program, probably 75% of those kids are from town, but we also get kids who are up visiting their grandparents for the summer. We've had kids from Florida and New York City and all over, really, go on the day trips with us. Mm-hmm.
What do you hope NREC looks like, let's say, another decade from now?
Well, I hope we're still living within our means. I'm hoping that the visitor center will be a little bit bigger. We have plans to grow as we can with our funding, and I hope that we're still providing information to people and being a useful nonprofit in terms of getting kids outdoors and educating people about the great natural history up in the Moosehead Lake region.
All right, let's circle back once again to remind everybody what the details are on the Togue Derby. It's coming up, it's the 8th annual, and it's coming up January 23rd and 25th. Ricky Craven is joining us again this year. And where do you get tickets for this?
Okay, if you're going to actually fish in the Derby, there are several places in Greenville that you can buy your tickets when you're coming up into town. You can get them at Indian Hill Trading Post. You can get them right at the Visitor Center. You can get them at Lucky Bait, which is downtown. You can also get them at Moosehead Bait and Tackle up in Rockwood. Now, if you're a little bit south, if you're coming up from the south, you can stop at Mountains Market and Dover Foxcroft. Mm-hmm. Van Raymond's Outfitters in Brewer has them. Or if you just want to buy a raffle ticket to get in on those great prizes, you can go online to the nrecmoosehead.org website, and you can buy your ticket right online. You can do it with a credit card, or if you've got a PayPal account, you can get it right there.
Okay, and the hours for the Derby itself?
It runs all day Friday, and I think it's going to end all day Friday, Saturday, and ends at 4 o'clock on Sunday.
Well, we better get some good weather.
That will be key, but that we can't control.
For the last few minutes, Tim Obrey has been telling us about the 8th annual Togue Fishing Derby on Moosehead Lake that's coming up next weekend. Also next weekend, Cobscook Bay State Park holds a Winter Family Fun Day. That schedule is next. Then, the Pine Tree Snowmobile Club in Milford will try to take some of my money. The Chili Chowder Auction is next weekend. Stand by for more of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. I'm Bob Duchesne, host of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, and Tom Harmon is about to join me on air. He's superintendent of Cobscook Bay State Park in Edmonds, Downeast. This year, 5 Maine state parks are planning Winter Fun Days. Cobscook has its event next weekend. Now, I've seen them do this before over there, and it was pretty popular. Next Saturday's shindig is even bigger than the last one, but don't take my word for it. Well, Tom, welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine.
Oh, nice to be with you.
It must be fun to be superintendent of the best state park in Maine.
Well, it is. That's what we claim down here, that it is the best park in the state of Maine.
Well, there's only a handful of parks that are going to do Winter Fun Days, and Cobscook Bay State Park is one of them. That's coming up next Saturday from 10 to 3. So what is it you're going to do?
We have a lot of things lined up. Basically, we have cross-country skiing, and I have Washington County Community College involved. They're sending their ski trailer with the state ski trailer. So we should have quite a few skis, snowshoes, and stuff. And they're going to have a couple of people on standby there to help people that's never skied before, help them set up, get the binders up, give them a few instructions, and send them down the trail.
I remember a nature trail out of the entrance parking lot that is skiable, but if I remember right, there's a downhill turn there at the bottom that I have yet to ski successfully.
That'd be a little too much.
Would you have a mattress at the bottom of that?
Oh, I think you'd want several of them anyway.
Yeah. I remember going down that hill and saying, "Oh, Nelly."
We usually stay on the roads. We keep the roads groomed and set up for cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. We have about 4.5, 5 miles worth of trails here.
Okay.
But we will have the cross-country skiing. There'll be snowshoeing. We have a nice ice skating pond across from the old office building here, and a downhill sliding for the kids, snow sliding. That's right there, too. We offer snowmobile rides for totes. We have a crew from the Rooster State Park that comes down. They help us out. This year here we have something a little new. It's horse-drawn sleigh rides.
Yeah, where's that coming from?
That's coming right from the town of Dennisville.
Okay.
Down here, there's a gentleman. He does this. I talked to him about 2 weeks ago, and he wants to do it. And hopefully we'll have the snow. And I think that will be a pretty big hit down here.
Oh, yeah. Will you keep the cross-country ski trails and the snowshoe trails separate so that we're not messing up each other's trails?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. We're going to have the sliding and the skating will be behind our shop building, which is about probably an eighth of a mile from the park. Inside the park, there'll be cross-country skiing and snowmobile rides, and that will be going on down there. And this year also we've added the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife sending down their Operation Game Theft trailer, which I believe will be very interesting to the kids and for the parents also. And we have the canine team from the Warden Service is going to be here, Alan Curtis, and he'll be doing a demonstration and taking questions from the crowd. Forestry will be here. It's always good to have the guys down here, and they bring Smokey the Bear with them. The kids really love that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good setup. We provide a hot lunch for people. We have a gentleman down here. He's done it for the last 5 years. We have birdhouses that kids can make. He helps them through it. And basically, that's it as far as activities.
What kind of weather could affect the event? Wicked cold or rainy, or is there any circumstances under which people should be advised, maybe it's not going to happen?
It's going to happen because we don't cancel.
That's the Downey spirit.
Yeah.
Well, do you have Edmonds Division of Moosehorn National Wildlife Refuge right across the street? Do you use that as well, and do you groom in there?
We didn't last year. I'm going to be talking with the manager down in the Moosehorn, Bill Konecki.
Yep.
See about the possibility if we get enough snow down here to open that up. They're giving us an additional about 6.5 miles.
Well, tell Bill that I said it was okay.
Okay, I will. I'll do that.
This is an answer to one of the trivia questions that few people get. There are 2 state parks in Maine that aren't actually owned on state land, and you're one of them. You want to explain that history a little bit?
Well, back in '65, the Moosehorn approached the state of Maine and asked them if they would take the park over. And they signed up an agreement, and they did, and there was no money to change hands. It's just been an agreement that we'll run the park, and that's what we've been doing since '65. And
you must know what the other state park is that's not on state property.
I really don't.
Oh, it's Crescent Bay State Park down in, Scarborough, Cape Elizabeth, wherever that is.
Okay. Yeah, now you say I do remember something about that.
Yep. Well, let's talk a little bit about location, because I take it for granted everybody knows where Cobscook Bay State Park is, but that's probably wrong.
Well, we're way down east. If you overshoot the runway a little bit, you may be treading water. So.
Well, basically, essentially, you go up Route 1 through Lubec, and then through Whiting, really. Actually, I take that back, through Whiting.
Actually, yeah. Stay on U.S. Route 1, come past Whiting, 4 miles, and you're at Cobscook, heading towards Calais.
Now, what's it going to cost people to attend?
School groups, they're free. We don't charge the school groups. But for parents, and it'd be $1.50. Kids for 11 and under is free. And I mean, like I said, that takes in the lunch, free lunch, and all the use of the equipment and everything that goes on. That's an amazing
$1.50. I really wish everybody would hear that and say, "I get all that for $1.50. I may as well go outdoors for a day."
And the thing about what makes it most great is the community involvement that we have down here. It's just grown over the years. Have a lot of involvement and a lot of help, and it's really good just to see it.
Well, it's Cobscook Bay State Park Winter Fun Day. It's coming up next Saturday from 10 to 3, and it only costs you $1.50.
Right, and plus there's all throughout the state. There's four other events coming on, like St. George, Mount Blue, Rooster State Park, and Lily Banks. And they have great events. It's good. I've been to a few of them.
Yep, they're good. They're not as good as Cobscook Bay State Park, but that's just bias on my part.
Well, I won't say anything. It's okay. Yeah.
That's Tom Harmon. He's the boss at Cobscook Bay State Park. Next Saturday is their Winter Family Fun Day. Next Saturday night, the Pine Tree Snowmobile Club in Milford offers up chili, chowder, and a lively auction. This was Todd Saussure's idea a few years ago. And as I've learned the hard way, the problem is when you come up with a good idea, usually you have to do all the work, too. Todd is next on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. You're listening to Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Now let me get this straight. There's an event coming up that combines food, fun, good stuff, and eventually snowmobiling. If you've ever dropped into the Pine Tree Snowmobile Club in Milford on a Sunday morning, one of the folks cooking you up a terrific breakfast might well be Todd Saussure. 4 years ago, Todd had an idea for putting together a chili and chowder dinner, followed by an auction. The problem is, whenever you come up with a good idea, usually that puts you in charge of making it happen. Well, next Saturday night, the 4th annual chili and chowder dinner takes place in Milford. Todd Saussure, welcome to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine.
Well, thank you very much. When you say Wild Maine, should I take offense to that, and given the fact that you're calling me today?
I express the term liberally. So it's anything that happens outdoors, and even events indoors that benefit things that happen outdoors, like the chili and chowder auction you have coming up this coming Saturday night.
Yes, thank you very much. And yeah, that'll be on the Saturday, the 24th, upcoming here, and we're pretty excited. This is going to be our 4th one. And over the last few years, it's been building up quite well. And the first year or so, we raised a couple of thousand and grew it up a little bit. And last year, we went up over 3,000. And so that's a great number for us for a small club here in eastern Maine. Snowmobiling certainly stretching statewide, but our little corner of the world here out of Milford in the greater Old Town area, while not necessarily known for its snowmobiling, it's certainly very lively, and we as a club maintain approximately 30 miles of ITS trail system, as well as another 30 to 40 miles of local trail system. So certainly whatever we can do as volunteers to raise monies and support the club so that we can do that work for folks to be able to go out and ride in this vicinity is certainly well appreciated by our public. So,
well, let's be frank about this. There are some really good places in northern Maine, up around Moosehead Lake, which are really good, but where you are located in Milford gives you a straight shot out towards the Stud Mill Road area up to Nicotaus Lake, all the way to Grand Lake Stream if you wanted to. There's
Absolutely.
A ton of really good sledding out that direction.
Yeah, no question. And, we had some great supporting businesses out to Nicotaus, the Nicotaus Lodge, and the little cafe right there, and of course, as you mentioned, Grand Lake Stream, or going down to Beddington to the Airline Diner is, is a great little ride. But if you went up through Nicotaus, you could get on the ITS or stay on the ITS. You can make your way through north to Howland or Lincoln, or even cross over Millinocket and back down again. So, without question, with a little bit of fortitude, you can certainly get there from here.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to spring this on you. The purpose of this interview is to give you a personal chance to talk me into going to the auction next weekend.
Well, I'm glad to have the chance, and I appreciate you, Bob, doing it for that. And you've now done this a few years, so again, my thanks and appreciation. For your listeners, we'd love to have you come out. First of all, it starts off with an absolutely scrumptious meal of several different kinds of chowder, from corn chowder to fish chowder to even a fiddlehead soup that's been made by one of our local favorites, and then also some terrific chili actually made by our club president, Dana Carson, and biscuits and desserts galore. As you can just, they're all very savory and wonderful. And we'll serve between 5 and 6 o'clock on that Saturday the 24th. And starting around 6 o'clock, we'll do a live auction. Now, the silent auction will be set up the entire time, and that'll stay open for approximately about another hour into the live auction. So approximately 7 o'clock or so, we'll shut that down, and and count up who the winners are, and it'll make you aware of that. The live auction itself, we do about 25 items, and they're a lot of fun, from some locally made pies by Nikki Thornton Madden. And the best case scenario is when her family shows up, because they buy them from us. So that's the best stuff. When her brothers start outbidding each other, that's the most amount of fun. But go from that to heating oil and pellets and firewood, because again, in this region, everybody needs one of those particular products, and so those often fetch a very good price. So the auction's an awful lot of fun. I actually do it. And as you've been
You're the auctioneer?
I am.
Oh, that's a plus. You're moving along towards getting me to come.
Well, you're very kind. That might have just shut down half the listeners right there. But no, it does make it a lot of fun. My daughter also helps out with the auction. She's probably done fairly, maybe even better than I have these last 2 years, just as she's gotten a little mature into it, and she's awful fun. And then my older daughter is a big help in kind of running. So it's great to have the kids up there. I think it's out of pity that most people make bids just to give them a break from me, perhaps. But
I saw the photos on Facebook last year, and it looked like you had a riot, just a ball. It looked like a lot of fun.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't matter where I am. I'm always having fun. It's when everybody else is having fun at the same time, it's even better.
Yeah. Is it just me, or is this event growing?
Yeah, we've had we start off a little slow. People didn't really know what it was, and we started off with a decent number of 50 or 60 folks, and it grew up to 70, 80, and last year we were right around the 100 mark. And
well, I've got a question. If I come, do you accept credit cards, or do I need to bring a checkbook?
We accept everything:
okay.
Cash, credit cards, and checkbooks. So really, we just try to make it as easy as it can be for you to be as interested in the evening as you wish to be. How's that?
That's good. Now, let me ask you this. Is there any competition between the chili cooks and the chowder makers?
That's a really good question. So the chili cooks, actually, not so much, because we basically have just a single chili cook, Dana Carson, our club president. He makes a really good-sized chili, and it's usually enough to last us the evening. Now, we do have several chowder chefs, but there are a variety of different chowders. So they're not like there's all corn or all this or all that. So not typically a lot of competition, and they're all such wonderful people. I don't think they would want to say theirs is better than anybody else's. So that might be a good curveball to throw at them one of these years, though. I like the thought, though.
That's what I'm thinking. Just see who runs out first.
I love it. Good idea.
All right, you can have that one for free.
Excellent. The next one's going to cost me, right?
Yeah, right. Now, you've got other club events. I'm going to circle back and give the information again on the auction itself, but you've got other events coming up this winter that are on my schedule. Poker.
Absolutely. And we're on Facebook, the Pine Tree Snowmobile Club, right on Facebook, and our calendar of events is on there. But we have at the end of this month, we've got in February, we've got the poker run, and we'll have breakfast every Sunday morning from 7 to 11, stretching through to the end of February. So certainly, if you can't make it to the chili chowder and auction or any of the other type of events that we may have upcoming, everybody eats breakfast on Sunday. Come see us.
Well, do you guys do anything besides eat?
Why would you? So there are occasions when we snowmobile. There you are. But,
Well, let me see if I've studied up for this test correctly. I'm going to give you the details back, and you tell me if I got any of them wrong.
Okay.
The chili and chowder dinner will start at the Milford Town Hall at 5 o'clock, Saturday night, January 24th. You'll eat for an hour, then the auction will start somewhere around 6. It's about 25 items, plus a silent auction going on the side. That'll take you a good hour, maybe an hour and a half, 2 at the most. And you're the auctioneer, and all the excitement is probably done by about 8 o'clock.
Yeah, absolutely. That's about right. Outside is 8:30, and the cost is $7 for adults, $4 for children under 12, or $20 for a family. I mean, if you've got a mom and a dad or what have you with a number of children, well, we talk $20 is top dollar.
Well, I can see this is going to cost me.
It's going to set you back a bit, huh?
I'm afraid so.
Hey, well, thank you very much for your time, and I, again, truly appreciate your thoughtfulness in helping us promote. And for everybody listening, love to see you on the 24th, but any other time, you're welcome to come visit us at the Pine Tree Snowmobile Club, the Call Road in Milford, Maine.
Thanks, Todd. Todd Saucier, Pine Tree Snowmobile Club in Milford. The chili chowder dinner starts at 5 next Saturday night at the Milford Town Hall. The auction starts at 6. If you can't make that, consider their poker run on February 8th. And if you've listened to this whole show, you know the 8th annual Togue Ice Fishing Derby is at Moosehead Lake next weekend. Ricky Craven's going to be there. And the Cobscook Bay State Park Winter Fun Day is next Saturday from 10 to 3. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine airs twice every weekend, Saturday morning at 9 a.m. and Sunday morning at 8 a.m. And it's archived with all the previous shows on the website at 929theticket.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysarts, EBS, and Napa Auto Parts. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.